Founded in October of 2019, the 10th anniversary of Paizo's Kingmaker Adventure Path is a long-awaited addition to the release lineup, and for the game's second edition, thrusting it into the new system and making it available for a new generation of gamers to enjoy. Almost 4 years later, we finally get to see the fruits of the team's labor, a complete compilation adventure that takes a beloved classic and revamps and streamlines it, much in the same way as Rise of the Runelords and Curse of the Crimson Throne received throughout the whopping decade-long lifespan of the first edition of the Pathfinder RPG. The Kingmaker AP, shorthand for Adventure Path, takes place in the game's core setting of Galarian, known as the Stolen Lands, and largely takes up the core of the plot, stretching out into untamed wilds and building a new nation. Of course, this is a high fantasy world with magic, demons, undead, and guns. Should let you know that there's vibes to be checked very quickly in the world around the players, and something much deeper comes to the forefront. But that is spoiler territory, so let's instead talk a bit about some of the changes we see in the anniversary release and the improvements it brings to the table. First things first, as a note on the 2E changes to the AP system as a whole, where previously we had player companions, which were free to download on Paizo.com, now the companion is directly tied to the AP itself, giving GMs a comprehensive section detailing player options and ways the party can really feel like they belong to the story about to unfold. This is in addition to a handful of options for backgrounds that are also unique to the story, further cementing your ability to kind of lock yourself and make your character feel like they belong in this pre-written adventure. In the 10th anniversary of Kingmaker, we get started with some new content. It's an entire section dedicated to giving the party a reason to embark on their adventure, where the original gave the reins to the GM more wholly to make this fit and bring everyone together. You could really be the difference between a cold open and a hot one, and this one does a really good job at taking that uncertainty out of your hands and giving you something to lead in with. It should also be noted that this whole entire new chapter of the adventure also includes a lot of companions you'll meet throughout the course of the adventure, which makes the companion guide very handy to have as it introduces them in their full stat blocks at the most relevant points the party is most likely to encounter them, or where they'll be most useful if they are joining your players. Between chapters, they include a suggestion on what levels the party should be for different parts, traditionally in an anniversary AP like this. However, given that Kingmaker is a bit more sandboxy, you tend to get a lot of your involvement through just a general exploration of things, which this adventure uses the Hexploration system, which older gamers and Grandpa Nax over here are going to be far more familiar with in earlier editions of Dungeons & Dragons, but also in the GMG, which is the Game Mastery Guide for Pathfinder 2nd Edition, Chapter 3, Subsystems, and page 170. However, it's also important to know that it's detailed to a degree in this book as well, getting almost 70 pages in Chapter 2 that go to the concept of Hexploration in this adventure. It's also important to note that those 70 pages mostly include the encounters you'll find from doing the Hexploration, so it's not just 70 pages of straight legit rules. It is also a lot, it's the majority of content you will find through the act of using that system. Chapter 3 is officially where we finally get to the core of this campaign's OG story, coming to our narrative crossroads of sorts. From here is where we get a lot of the same old sandbox kingdom building adventure that Kingmaker is well established and loved for, that Hexploration I talked about, and then you also get a lot of new interesting stories integrated into the setting, specifically for the adventure, in combination and in hand with Owlcat Games, who created the Kingmaker Adventure RPG. Now, not to detract from the stellar work of the anniversary authors, artists, and development, but a part I really wanted to talk about here is the ending chapter, so there's going to be spoilers for both the original and for the new publication. In the original Kingmaker AP, the players defeat the Nymph Queen Nerissa and recover the sword Briar if they'd lost it previously, or presumably kill her with it if they kept hold of it. That is, good job, high five. Let's see what goes beyond in chapter 6 of the book, book 6. But in the anniversary, we get something way cooler, I personally feel, and it's a dedicated chapter that showcases some of the more high to max level gameplay that's usually a very rare experience in a lot of games. If Nerissa is the Thordak, the Cinder King of this adventure for any Critical Role fans, then the Lantern King is absolutely our Vecna. Stealing the Nymph Queen's essence and transporting the players into a piece of his own domain, a twisted what-if reality, where the only way to return to the land as normal is to take him down, or join him, It's a great glow up to the ending that gives the Briar storyline some more weight and depth, giving more ways than violence to end the encounter and writing an absolute banger of a transition that kept the momentum going forward in stride. My initial thoughts are obviously pretty high in praise. I think the storyline overall benefited a lot from the anniversary treatment, just like its predecessors, and the additions serve it more than well, taking what was already a beloved venture and giving it more reasons to be enjoyed. I also want to talk about some of the add-ons that came from the crowdfunding campaign that, at the time of writing this, I'm not sure if they'll be available for general purchasing. The companion guide and the kingdom tracker are pretty goated accessories for the adventure, so much so that if there was a bundle that had the AP tracker, screen, and companion guide, I would probably buy it again just because. The value for a GM is insane, and having this important bits of integral to the subsystems is a huge thing for me. Next, we have the alternate Bestiary books, one for 1E and one for 5E Dungeons and Dragons. And while I know this is the first announced 5E printing for the Pathfinder game, it was barely the first printed, with the Abomination Vaults 5E variant almost releasing before this could. It seemed like with the length that it was taking for this to all get arranged, we were going to quickly see that publication come out well before this. That being said, that is not the case, and from what I've gotten through and seen through the 5e book, I think it's a good thing, and I know there was a lot of discourse about this. However, I gotta say, giving an introductory opportunity to the setting of Golarion to a group of players in the D&D department that would previously probably have no interest whatsoever in caring about the world, and thus having no issue needing to look into the game's mechanics that see how things in this world would work, as if a way that you wouldn't normally get in, say, Eberron or Faerun in the Forgotten Realms and D&D, is ultimately a good thing. This is a great gateway to grow our player base and ultimately share a world setting that is pretty dope. Likewise, with the 1E Bestiary, it gives you access to stat blocks with some tweaking and tuning that are also good, because in traditional 1E fashion, with when this version of the Adventure Path originally came out, things spiked as far as both systems and both mechanics and just power level in general, to a point where if you were to play any of the later introductory classes or even races in first edition, you would grossly outperform anything that you would fight in this adventure path. Let's be completely realistic here. Now, with the 1E Bestiary bringing everything up to speed, in both cases they integrate some of the new mechanics you get for certain fights into these two alternate bestiaries, which in previous editions, well, I guess edition, these didn't have, making fights more dynamic, making fights more interesting. This is seriously a great product Paizo has produced. Even with nearly 4-year wait, this constant updates and the stellar delivery really make up for the time. The Kingmaker Anniversary Edition should be on Paizo's website, linked down below, in both physical and PDF formats, sometime around October from what I understand. So definitely something to keep your eyes out for and look forward to. If the pricing I'm seeing by some online retailers is reflective of what we're going to get for the final prices, given that as things as they are, it's more speculative at this point because we don't have confirmed pricing by Paizo in the general public, I gotta assume they're a little bit on the high end. But on that same note, it's important to note and understand that the Kingmaker Anniversary book is not a small book. It's about the size of the Pathfinder core rulebook, which is a chunky boy. Likewise, the companion guide is just shy of being the advanced player's guide in size. That's 2 huge books, especially if you're able to get the 2 of them comboed together in the slipcase, which I believe is actually a Kickstarter exclusive. So don't hold your breath on that. It might be a bit of an expensive get to grab both of these books. That being said, if you don't want the companion guide and you're going to be playing in a different edition, whether it be 1E or whether it be 5E D&D, both bestiaries have the rules for the companions in them. So the companion guide really only matters if you're going to be playing this in 2nd edition Pathfinder. Why is it a separate book? It's a lot of content, and if we put it in the main book, I can almost guarantee you they would have had something so unwieldy it would have ended up being more of a joke than it would have been anything else. That being said, I think it's a great add-on. personally, if you're going to be using the companions, they're not a required subsystem. Like most things in most of the books that get produced for 2nd edition Pathfinder, anything that is an optional subsystem is ultimately purely optional. Even the Hexploration rules that this leans on pretty heavily aren't something you have to use. All in all, I think it's pretty obvious at this point. I hugely endorse this product. I think Paizo really nailed this one. And while I'm generally one prone to sing their praises for just about every release, I think this adventure path for a redo of something they've previously produced to bring it up to speed, to modernize it, to just generally produce something that was already a cult classic in the library and bring it up to a modern standard. This book's just straight. This is going to be a goated adventure path for 2nd edition. I hate to say it, but from what I've seen thus far, just giving it my brief kind of skim through in a PDF form without getting my physical hands on the actual copy as of when this was written, I believe this is going to overshadow a lot of 2nd edition APs for a very long time to come. My name is Okanax, and if you enjoyed the video, give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more content in the future. You can find me on my socials like Twitter @corner_scrub, or over on Twitch where sometimes I stream games badly, which is twitch.tv/Okanax.